Dear colleagues, dear students, ladies and gentlemen from Cyprus and abroad, good evening. I welcome you all to the second lecture of the 63rd public lecture series in the conference hall of the Archaeological Research Unit and online. Let me start with an unpleasant announcement that has nothing to do with earthquakes or with Vasıf. This lecture series, established 32 years ago, is the last one that takes place in this magnificent neoclassical building. The Archaeological Research Unit, our ARU, the first research unit of the University of Cyprus, is being forced by the donators, the A.G. Leventis Foundation, to return the building this June. Despite this was given to the University of Cyprus for 19 plus 19 years, to house the research library of the ARU with almost 25,000 volumes, the archaeologists of the Department of History and Archaeology, various labs, archaeological and reference collections, archives, and postdoctoral researchers. I would like to inform you that the ARU, the landmark of our university associated with the Cypriot and Mediterranean archaeology, will experience an unpleasant transitional phase until its reunion in 2027 at the old university campus on Kallipolio Street. Until then, our research library will be hosted at the main university library in the new university campus. In May, there will be a detailed official announcement. Tonight, we're here for a very good reason. We have the great honor and big pleasure to host Vasıf Şahoğlu, professor at the Department of Archaeology in the program for Protohistory and Near Eastern Archaeology at Ankara University. Professor Şahoğlu is also the current director of the Ankara University and Mustafa Research Center for Maritime Archaeology in Urla, Izmir. Vasıf Şahoğlu was born in Nicosia and received his BA, MA, and PhD from the Ankara University. For his PhD research at the University of Heidelberg on the early Bronze Age pottery from the early urban site at Liman Tepe, Izmir, he received a DAAD scholarship. After his PhD, he received a postdoctoral research from the Institute for Aegean Prehistory, East Crete. The research of Professor Şahoğlu focuses on prehistoric and protohistoric archaeology of Anatolia and the Aegean. He conducted interdisciplinary excavations at Baklatepe, Limantepe, Kocabastepe, Komurburnu. He directed the excavations at the Bronze Age site of Çeşme, Bağlararası, and is currently the director of the land and underwater excavations at Limantepe in Izmir. Following the passing of Professor Dr. Hayat Erkanal in 2019, he is now also coordinating the Izmir Region Excavations and Research Project, so-called IRER. The IRER, initiated by Hayat Erkanal in 1992, brought not only the Anatolian archaeology further steps ahead, but became a milestone in the research of Aegean prehistoric archaeology and led Aegeanists to review the Neolithic and the Bronze Age of this culturally vital part of the Mediterranean. With his admirable excavations at Limantepe that Vasıf is continuing, Panastepe, Baklatepe, Çeşme, Bağlararası, Kocabastepe, and Komurburnu, he established an international scientific dialogue, interdisciplinary synergies, and above all, profound and lifelong friendships between Turkish and Greek archaeologists. I have the honor to participate in the excavations of this project at the early urban harbour site at Limantepe since 2000, and the big pleasure to cooperate with my good friend Vasıf since then. Vasıf has widely published on Bronze Age economies, maritime archaeology, human responses to natural disasters, long-distance travel, contacts and trade issues, burial habits, and pottery studies around the Aegean and Anatolia. I skip reading the long list of his publications, most of which are available online. Tonight, we are so privileged to attend his highly interesting lecture titled Çeşme Bağlararası, a Western Anatolian harbour site destroyed by the tsunamis and volcanic ashes of the Bronze Age Thera eruption. This lecture depicts an updated version of an article published in 2022 in PNAS. The timing of this lecture, with the unpleasant and dangerous earthquakes, particularly in Thera and Amorgos, that Cycladic people experienced in the last 15 days is accidental, as Vasıf has accepted my invitation to give this lecture last October. Such a coincidence. Though Thera Island, with the two volcanoes in its microregion, as well as Amorgos Island, with the superactive geological faults, are at the epicenter of interests of geologists and archaeologists. Dear Vasıf, we look forward to listening to the effects of Thera eruption on the Bronze Age site at Çeşme Bağlararası, and welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I would like to thank to Urania Kuka and my other friends and colleagues here at the Archaeological Research Unit for their kind invitation to give a talk on our scientific research in Western Turkey as İzmir Region Excavations and Research Project. When we organized the contents of the talk with Urania, already last year, and she said it was in October, we had no idea it would be such a timely topic, given the recent seismic developments on and around Santorini Island. Let's hope that nothing disastrous happens again anytime soon, and let's travel back in time to have a closer look at the Aegean world to see what was happening there approximately 3,500 years ago. In order to do this, I will be talking about some of the relatively new results of our recent interdisciplinary work at Çeşme Bağlararası, which we published in the journal PNAS. The structure of my talk will follow like that. First, I would like to give you some information about the site Çeşme Bağlararası that we've been excavating, the chronology of the site, and the research questions that we have. And it's an important site for human mobility and also interconnections during the first half of the second millennium. So I would like to talk a little bit about this as well. And then excavation methodology that we did, which helped discovering the volcanic ash and tsunami deposits in Çeşme Bağlararası. Also, I plan to show you the evidence of these tsunamis and the volcanic ashes that we have at the site, also human victim as well, and conclude with some future perspectives. The fertile region of İzmir is located in the heart of coastal central Western Anatolian coastline. This region is connected to Central Anatolia through the valleys of big rivers such as Hermos and the two meanders on one side, and acts as one of the most important gateways of Western Anatolia, opening to the Aegean Sea through the many harbor settlements located on the coast. The economic importance of the region is also underlined through metal ores of copper, silver, lead, and gold, particularly in the region of Baklatepe, south of İzmir. Therefore, with its fertile landscape and mineral resources, this unique location was an ideal landscape for habitation since prehistoric times. İzmir Region Excavations and Research Project, IREP, is an ongoing project aiming to investigate and reconstruct the environmental changes and socio-economic and political structure of the Izmir region and coastal Western Anatolia during the prehistoric periods. İREP was founded in 1992 under the direction of my late professor Hayat Erkanal and has been continuing under my direction as a project of Ankara University Anküsam. The project includes excavations at the sites of Panalstepe, Baklatepe, land and underwater excavations at Limantepe, which is the active excavation of the project now, Kocabaştepe, Karaburun, Kömürburnu, and Çeşme Bağlararası, all located around the Gulf of Izmir. Çeşme Bağlararası, which is going to form the main body of our talk today, is located at the westernmost tip of Urla Peninsula in a narrow valley situated between two hills. The harbor settlement must have shifted its location within this valley depending on the changes of the coastline. Excavations revealed the presence of a horizontally shifting settlement at Bağlararası, unlike the typical vertically stratified settlement types of Anatolia. The reasons behind this movement must be sought in the changing coastline of the area as well. Çeşme Bağlararası is inhabited at least from the 3rd millennium BC onwards until the end of the late Bronze Age. Various gaps in the habitation history are most probably due to the horizontally shifting of the settlement. Two very interesting layers are the severe earthquake horizon prior to the Bronze Age Thera eruption and the layer of the volcanic ash found in 2012, which marks another distinctive phase in the habitation history of the site. Geoarchaeological work conducted at the site by Ertuğ Öner and Serdar Vardal revealed a preliminary reconstruction of the site's formation through time. According to their research, Çeşme Bağlararası was situated adjacent to a river, and the earliest settlement was constructed adjacent and on top of a coastal marshy area. The fact that archaeological deposits at the site extends at least 2 meters below today's sea level clearly indicates the role of tectonics for this area. Bağlararası today lies at the heart of Çeşme, one of the most touristic destinations in Turkey. The site has one of the best harboring locations of the Aegean, which is serving as a marina today. Excavations revealed two settlement areas dating to the mid-3rd millennium BC and the other to the 2nd millennium BC. Our talk today will focus on the 2nd millennium BC settlement. The earlier parts of the 2nd millennium BC is so far unknown from the site. The site began to flourish by the 2nd quarter of the millennium, and a fully organized harbor settlement belongs to this period. Çeşme Bağlararası Phase 2 reflects the earliest fully organized plan of the 2nd millennium BC site, based on the data available at hand. At least 3 successive phases have been recorded, 2C to 2A, being the best documented. A severe earthquake horizon is separating Phase 2B from the following 2A, further highlighting the tectonic character of the area. The northeastern part of the fortifications surrounding the site was unearthed during the excavations. The construction technique indicates that the walls were constructed in blocks abutting to each other. A small bastion was also built exactly at the adjoining point of the 2 separate fortification wall blocks for further strengthening the system. Çeşme Bağlararası 2B settlement consists of insula of houses separated from each other by streets that are attached to the fortification wall. The settlement has a main street which is following the same layout as the fortification wall, and narrower side streets are attached to this main street. Majority of the houses are rectangular or trapezoid in shape and constitute their own walls attached to the adjacent one. They all have domed ovens in the left inner corner of the house. The excavated part of the settlement constitutes a domestic corner where almost all the buildings seem to have been used as houses, except for 2 distinctive structures which are located at important locations on the main artery at the junction points of the streets. One of these features is a trapezoid building with an entrance from the main artery. The main room is followed by 3 small subterranean rooms which are accessed from above. The main room included various installations associated with ground stones and were probably used as the main wine-making workshop where the grapes were crushed and juice was collected. The building was severely destroyed during the earthquake that brought an end to Çeşme 2B phase. The two big face pot jars you see here were found in the debris of the house that was collapsed into the street during the earthquake. The southern room yielded carbonized seeds of various species, indicating that it might have been used as a storage. The one in the middle was plastered on all sides with the floor and gave us the impression that it might have been used as a container for liquids, in this case, wine. And the final room included many ceramic vessels, mainly for storing, pouring, and drinking liquids. The wine workshop at Çeşme Bağlararası, located at a strategic location within the settlement, clearly demonstrates production beyond the level of a single household and also gives us important hints regarding the socioeconomic organization of the inhabitants of the site during this period. A pottery kiln unearthed yet on another strategic location, and you see it here in detail, within the settlement, clearly demonstrates, a pottery kiln unearthed yet on another strategic location, gives us a glimpse of organized production activities at Çeşme Bağlararası during the second quarter of the second millennium BC. Kitchen of a house adjacent to the wine house completely collapsed during the earthquake that brings an end to this phase at 2B, thus offering us a unique study case for analyzing the complete inventory of a kitchen for this period. Çeşme Bağlararası seem to reflect coastal Western Anatolian settlement type with local cultural elements, namely the ceramics. Although it's a coastal settlement with one of the best natural harboring location, the material culture at the site doesn't seem to indicate a well-connected maritime settlement during this period. A small number of imported ceramic vessels appear for the first time during this phase. The imports are all in fine wares. A pedestal jar appears both in local fabrics as well as in imported fabrics. Phase 2B at Çeşme Bağlararası ends with the severe earthquake that I mentioned before, which destroyed almost all of the buildings and part of the fortification wall. We are currently working on the finer dating of this earthquake horizon in order to see if it can be correlated with any major seismic activity that might have taken place prior to the eruption of the Thera volcano. The following phase, 2A, sees the reorganization of the site. Some streets of the previous period were blocked by the newly built walls or have been narrowed. Some walls went out of use. The most distinctive change is the reduction of the size of the settlement by building a new fortification wall on top of the adjoining walls of two phase 2B houses on the eastern side of the fortification. In this part, we can follow this really nicely. A probable gateway is also spotted on this side. Unfortunately, it was impossible to excavate it further. This horizon is marked by construction of numerous plastered, stone-lined, or clay basins, along with hearths and ovens all around the settlement, probably indicating a phase of survival following the earthquake. The pottery tradition continued from the previous phase with no change. Even the imported pottery seemed to follow similar patterns, implying similar maritime connections. Çeşme Bağlararası 2A ends with a so far unknown event which may be related to another earthquake, but currently there's not enough evidence on this matter. The two very well preserved contexts marking the end of this phase both have burnt destruction debris. This marks another distinctive phase of abandonment at Çeşme Bağlararası. Here, this is the really nicely preserved house, which is burnt with the destruction. It's actually this building here. The site seemed to have been deserted following the end of phase 2A, and the settlement turned into an area with half-buried house remains and potential source of building materials. So this phase actually is the last final occupation phase in the area that we excavated at Çeşme Bağlararası. No architectural features of the following level 1 has been found at the excavated trenches. The presence of this level is attested only in pits and destruction fields throughout the settlement, throughout the excavated area. These deposits are chronologically post-dating the abandonment phase following CB2A at the site and have been defined as Çeşme Bağlararası Level 1. The nature of these deposits will be further discussed in the later part of this talk. So it's this red horizon here that I'm now talking about. Based on the archaeological material coming from these field deposits at level 1, it can be said that Çeşme Bağlararası was transformed into a very widely connected site, and its material culture shows distinctively Aegean features. The study and scientific analysis of the pottery from Çeşme Bağlararası revealed evidence for continuity, but more so dramatic changes in certain aspects of the pottery technology, as well as the introduction of new shapes. Our Ankara University BSA Fitch Lab collaboration on the study of pottery from Çeşme Bağlararası revealed that the most striking evidence for this transformation lies in the appearance of new category of ceramic vessels, richly decorated and linked to drinking sets that echo Cretan practices and reflect direct or indirect associations with the Minoan world. Level 1 pottery reflects continuing traditions, mainly in the pitoy and cooking pots, that continue to be manufactured with the same techniques and use of same clay recipes and raw materials. On the contrary, striking differences are obvious in the tablewares used by the inhabitants. Most tablewares is now manufactured through wheel coiling and with the use of different clay recipes and different types of raw materials. Overall, morphological standardization is more noticeable in this phase. While red slips decorated the tablewares of the previous period, now most of the numerous cups, bowls, and small to medium jars are plain or covered with whitish slips. Greywares also make their first appearance in this period at Bağlararası during this phase. Overall, we can say that there is a dramatic change in pottery manufacturing technologies from the previous period. New shapes dominate the pottery repertoire, among which incense burners and fireboxes, well known from the Minoan cultural sphere, holds an important place. They clearly indicate new cultural adaptations. Part of the tableware now appears with painted decorations. These are the Minoan and the so-called Minoanizing examples. The Minoanizing vessels, much more frequent, show significant variation and feature two main categories: the most frequent dark on light and the less common light on dark. The study of their technology and fabric composition has so far indicated that production in these areas different to those of the previously analyzed Minoanizing pottery of Southeastern Aegean. So they show a different fabric composition. The Minoan pottery reflects highest quality examples of fine tablewares with dominant shapes like cups and jugs, and shows strong stylistic and technological similarities with Cnossian pottery. So their provenance is tentatively associated with Central Crete. A Minoan steatite stone vase from this level can be interpreted as a unique prestige object, opening a new dimension to our understanding of site's character during this phase. Based on the study of the textile tools, we can say that the Middle Bronze Age toolkits for textile production at Çeşme Bağlararası comprise mainly spindle whorls and bone tools with horizontally pierced spools and discoid loom weights, making their first appearance in this 2A period. More striking is the introduction of new technologies which have strong affiliations with the Minoan world. This is the abundant appearance of Minoan-type discoid loom weights in early late Bronze Age layers, level 1 at Çeşme. The introduction of the work weight loom points to the importance of pattern textile production, also observed elsewhere around the Aegean coasts. According to the archaeobotanical studies, the transition from Middle to Late Bronze Age at Çeşme also witnesses significant changes to arable farming practices. These pie charts show the proportions of major cereal crops in different phases of the site. While we can see broad continuity between the early Bronze Age and the Middle Bronze Age, the onset of the Late Bronze Age sees a major increase in the importance of barley and the introduction of new crop species, free threshing wheat. These developments brings the range of crops cultivated at Çeşme Bağlararası in line with settlements from Central Anatolia, Crete, and the Greek mainland. Archaeological material from level 1 deposits at Çeşme revealed an almost complete change of character at the site and reflects the presence of a fully flourished coastal town with intensive maritime connections. As we were excavating Çeşme Bağlararası, we were always chasing answers for the basic question of what happened to the settlement of this period, level 1 period, and why do we find it only in pits and field deposits? What we excavated in the first seasons between 2002 and 4 was this, a really nicely preserved settlement with all the in situ context, the streets, houses, everything very well preserved. And that's under this shelter. And then what we found in our excavations right next to it, starting from 2009, was this. A total destruction, lots of rubble, pits, fields, materials, which included pottery of our level 1, which is contemporary with late Minoan 1A period. A volcanic ash layer, which we identified outside the fortifications of the already deserted CB2 settlement back in 2012. After many years of investigations and analyses and interpretations, has finally been proven to belong to the Bronze Age eruption of Thera volcano. This white line here, you can see the volcanic ash. Remains of the volcanic ash extends to an approximately 15-meter long area and can be followed as a 2 to 3 centimeter thick line in the section of the excavated area. The analysis of the volcanic ash from Çeşme Bağlararası was conducted at Atom Institute in Vienna back in 2013, and the results were not very clear as the ash looked to have been mixed with another volcanic deposit, leading to a suggestion that there may be 2 separate volcanic eruptions around the same time. The bigger particles were then reanalyzed following this development, and they revealed even a more distant fingerprint than the Santorini signature. The confusion was eventually resolved once the local geology of the area was also taken into consideration, and the following XRF analysis further confirmed that the source of the volcanic ash as a Bronze Age Thera eruption. Underneath the ash layer, deposits of chaotic fill layers, including big stones and rubble that yielded archaeological material contemporary with late Minoan 1A, appear in this area. Here's a detail of that deposit under the ash, and this is how it looked during excavations for you to better see it. And there are also similar accumulations in other parts of the site. In the meantime, the northern section of the excavation area was looking like this. So it was basically looking like a field. It didn't look like a settlement deposit to me during the excavations, and that's why I suspected could there be a tsunami here, and contacted my good friend Beverly Goodman from Haifa University, with whom we already collaborated before at Çeşme and Limantepe. So she came and we did sampling back in 2014. In the end, Çeşme Bağlararası excavations continued and eventually completed by 2019. In the meantime, our analysis and the study of the material continued. And by the end of 2020, once the analysis had been completed, we managed to see the full picture at Çeşme Bağlararası. The site was devastated by a series of tsunamis generated by the eruption of Thera volcano. As until this moment, there is no other archaeological site around the Aegean where tsunami deposits originated from the Bronze Age eruption of Thera volcano have been identified in actual trenches and excavated in a stratigraphic way. I think it may be important to give some more detailed information about these deposits, how they look like, and based on our own interpretations and our own perspective. For example, I would like to show you this trench as we excavate it for you to see the deposition of all these tsunami deposits. It was a very difficult excavation because we were excavating basically fields and fields of different types all the time. So documenting them and deciding how to excavate was a big deal. But once we excavated all of it and scraped all the fill from the excavation, which dated to level 1, this was what was left underneath. And all of these remains you see here belongs to Çeşme 2 settlement. So before LM1A. So everything else you saw on top of this was actually the tsunami deposits itself. The sedimentological analysis of sampling from the section where the ash was unearthed revealed 3 main sequences, H1, H2, and H3. You can see here, all the way to here, H1, H2, and then what we call H3. And the lowermost, H1, was further subdivided into 4 separate layers. And this is the deposit which is contemporary with late Minoan 1A material and which forms our level 1 at Çeşme. The base of the sequence, H1A, contains framework supported large rubble, pottery, shell, and bone. This layer is topped by a thin, non-continuous volcanic ash here layer, meaning there might have been a short silence that allowed the ash to accumulate after this first tsunami arrival. H1B, which is above this layer, is similar but has matrix supported sediments, imbricated inclusions, and smaller rubble pieces. These chaotic characteristics are topped by a thicker ash layer whose elemental values, as I said, match tephra from the late Bronze Age eruption of Santorini volcano. This ash layer here. The lower contact of the 2 to 3 centimeter thick ash layer is sharp. So it's actually an airborne volcanic ash. It came from the air. It's flat, but on the top part, upper part, it has truncated flame-like structures. You can't see it very well here, but it's not so flat. So this means probably once the ash was accumulated, there was another water movement on top. And once the water was going back, that creates in tsunamis, apparently, I learned it during the study, this kind of feature. An approximately 8 centimeter thick layer, H1C, this part on top, above the ash, contains similar sediments and inclusions as H1B. However, instead of another ash layer, it ends with a distinctive charcoal-rich lens with charred remains. The top layer of this sequence, H1D, repeats the same sediments, similar sediments, inclusions, and pottery, which is contemporary with late Minoan 1A again, but with the addition of larger rubble capped by imbricated pebbles and a very fine terminally silty layer length mud cap. The entire H1 sequence has an overall average foraminifera abundance of 5 to 9 individuals per cc and 2.9 cc species with a high proportion of staining. The archaeological and sedimentological results from H1 horizon at Çeşme Bağlararası include ample indicators known from modern and paleo tsunami deposits, including alactinous marine inclusions, higher foraminifera abundance with staining, elemental trends skewed towards marine-like values, imbrication, collapsed structures, and non-deliberate burial. Hepachocerestoderma, glaucum, which are brackish water clams that live in highly concentrated beds, is also found within the tsunami debris next to the fortification. Patella marine limpet mollusks were also identified amongst the rubble. This species attaches itself to hard surfaces such as rocky coasts or marine structures, and similarly could have arrived during the tsunami. There are also signs of collapse and intrusion into the buildings at the site that doesn't fit earthquake evidence because the damage is unidirectional and nearby walls are unaffected. So this is another trench that I like to show you again. The tsunami came from this direction into the site. And for example, in this house connected to the fortification wall, a rubble layer intrudes from the collapsed portion of the wall and is blanketed by a darker soil that continues even further into the room. So all this darker soil you see here is actually tsunami fields. And watch here, tsunami came like this. This is the fortification wall of the site. Tsunami came, hit the fortification, and the stones of the fortification will fall into the house. And the tsunami, which will come afterwards again, will cover these stones. Such deposits would have required a very strong force to dismantle and distribute the stones. Tsunami deposits blocked by this fortification wall can also be seen outside the fortification. Like this part, for example, here. So they came and they hit the tsunami fortification wall. They were left outside, but it was so strong that the wall here fall in, and still all this darker soil is the level 1 field, the tsunami field, and the yellow part is actually the deposits which belong to the earlier stratified settlement. So this tsunami field covered all the area. We think we are looking at the tip of the iceberg here. There are many other contexts that we need to study and analyze in the following months and years. And just to give you a sneak peek of what is there to come, the photo above is the photo of the section where the red line is looking from the fortification. So this photograph, you look from here, it's this section here, and various channelings of the tsunami intrusions can be seen in the photograph. I would like to take your attention to this massive piece of mud brick wall, for example, that fall into the tsunami during that time. And here you can see these intrusions again, which clearly show us how the tsunami intruded into the abandoned settlement in many parts. It's you can see on the section that all these channelings went inside. And how does these channelings look? It looks like this. These photographs are from Sumatra tsunami, and they show the devastating dimensions of the disaster. But what's also striking here is the similar type of channelings of the tsunami intrusions into the settlement. As you can see here, for example, this building survived, but the tsunami went in, it destroyed the ones here. Some of them stay, some of them are destroyed. So it's all these channelings that went into the settlement. So we think those are a reflection of this situation here. As you can see, some parts stood, as I said, and some parts were fully damaged. Further away from this channeling of the tsunami intrusion at Çeşme Bağlararası, another similar one was also excavated. This area yielded one of the most interesting discoveries of this horizon, namely a skeleton of an articulated young male. The body was found within the rubble in a prone, slightly curved position, following the curvature of the limits of the tsunami intrusion. Can't see very well, but the tsunami came from here. And you can see this is the 2A period house, and tsunami came and destroyed that part of the house. And right there, we found the skeleton as well. The skeleton doesn't show any sign of deliberate, culturally appropriate burial. And the location of the skeleton also exhibits signatures of deposition within debris flow. We can see it more clearly here. The skeleton. So this is the limit of the tsunami destruction actually, and right behind is the earlier period house here. You can see the oven and the floor and all that, but this part of the house was destroyed by the coming tsunami, and this that person also came there. The skeleton is currently being studied by Yılmaz Erdal in Hacettepe University, and we are actually currently planning a publication about it. After a natural disaster such as a tsunami, survivors are tasked with the responsibility of rescuing victims, recovering the dead, caring for the injured, and post-event cleanup. At Çeşme Bağlararası, this effort is visible in the presence of misshapen pits, interpreted here as the preserved remains from their effort to retrieve victims from the tsunami debris. The human skeleton was located about a meter below such a pit, suggesting that it was too deep to be found and retrieved, and therefore probably unknowingly left behind. So you can see all these different pits that are opened, and we interpret them as pits that the inhabitants of the site went to find their missing persons. And this is how the area was looking like in the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004. And in 2011 Tohoku earthquake tsunami, missing persons accounted for over 10% of the death even a decade after the events. Victims that are swept up in the debris flow during a tsunami can get deeply buried with it, or drown at sea, thereby making 100% victim recovery unrealistic. The Çeşme Bağlararası young man is an ancient example of such a similar phenomenon. This was how we excavated the site, and if you look at the modern tsunami visuals, like here they found a person, and all different types of fillings accumulated in the area, and because we were excavating according to different types of fills, and the result, I think, looked exactly the same as this one. A Bronze Age Thera eruption is one of the worst natural disasters ever happened during the lifespan of humanity that can be followed through a certain marker, namely the volcanic ash, over a vast geographical area. When the volcano erupted, the winds were blowing mainly towards the eastern direction. Thus, markers of this ash can be found at locations in Anatolia or in Eastern Mediterranean and beyond. The airborne ash line can give us highest resolution time reference in human history. For example, if we find it in Çeşme Bağlararası in the Aegean and the site in Egypt, this would mean that we are looking at the same day or week in the time range of thousands of years. So dating the time of Thera eruption with such a resolution can give us the most unique opportunity for correlating the ancient cultures of the ancient Mediterranean. Thus, dating of the Bronze Age Thera eruption is one of the hottest debates in Mediterranean archaeology. According to archaeological correlations, the event marks the end of the late Minoan 1A period, which is also shown at Çeşme Bağlararası. This period is generally compared to the 18th Aegean Egyptian dynasty in the 16th century BC. This range of date is termed the low chronology. However, radiocarbon dating of the olive wood from the ash layers at Santorini have produced older ages, primarily in the mid-late 17th century BC, a range of dates referred to as the high chronology. So, although this event has this unique potential for the highest resolution chronological correlation within a day, this mismatch upsets the understanding of which people, what powers, and related events coexisted at the same time. In our recent study, we published 9 new radiocarbon dates all coming from the deposits of Çeşme Bağlararası level 1, which is contemporary with Levik-Minoan 1A period, meaning a time range before the happening of the eruption. As you can see, all radiocarbon ages have 2 sigma time ranges that coincide with both the high and low chronologies for the Bronze Age Thera eruption and tsunami events. However, the samples also group into 2 clusters, one which encompasses more of the high range and the other the low range. It is important to note that this clustering has no association with stratigraphic position. The significance of this is that there is no gradient by depth with age, and therefore the horizons were deposited in rapid sequence. That's why I put this graph here as well. All the locations of the C14 dates we have are marked there. And normally in a normal field, what do we expect? The oldest date to come at the bottom and the latest date to come at the top. But the situation is not like that. Why? Because of the tsunami accumulation at the site. I think this is a key for us to look more carefully into. We suggest that because all of the samples are from a well-sealed but mixed tsunami context, the youngest ages are more relevant for determining the age of the event itself. According to this principle, the entire event deposit cannot be older than the youngest measurement within it. Shouldn't be. The 2 clusters may reflect the mixing from the underlying archaeological site, which is an older, out-of-use portion of the site, while the younger cluster of ages is from materials introduced during the event itself, but still older than the moment of eruption. Accordingly, the 2 sigma radiocarbon age results of the sample closest to the human skeleton, for example, after calibration is, here I wrote it below, 1612 to 1573, which is 19.4%, and 1565 to 1501, which is 76.1%. One would be the most representative of the event's age. While these ages do not negate either chronology, it does limit the age to no older than 1612. When we look at this graph also, it's this part here. So we're not saying that it's something like 1612, but we are thinking that it cannot be older than 1612. It can be way later as well. So we are very well aware that the calibration with this time period is notoriously problematic and has long been the subject of extensive research. While the dates presented here do not definitely resolve the issue, they do provide fresh radiocarbon dates from a well-sealed archaeologically associated Bronze Age Thera eruption-related event horizon in the Aegean and has already opened new discussions. The Bronze Age Thera eruption is probably the biggest natural disaster that left clear chronological markers like volcanic ash or tsunami deposits during the Holocene. Based on our interdisciplinary scientific investigations at Çeşme Bağlararası, we propose that eruption of Thera volcano produced a series of tsunami landfalls that also arrived at the Western Anatolian Aegean site of Çeşme Bağlararası in the semi-closed Bay of Çeşme within a short period. We think Çeşme Level 1 settlement was located a few hundred meters north of the excavated areas and is currently lying under the modern town of Çeşme. So this is the area we excavated. We did the excavation, this red. And we think Level 1 settlement must be here because this was already deserted at the time of the eruption, and because the tsunamis are coming into the Bay of Izmir like this, they cannot go further because there are hills here. So the water, when it came, it couldn't go there. So it came here, and probably this action, because of the local geography of the area, it increased the impact of the tsunami within this gulf. And the first part that it found a place to go to the land was around here. So we suggest that we haven't excavated it, but the level 1 settlement must be here, because remember, this is a settlement which is moving horizontally all the time anyway. And it destroyed all the settlement and brought all the debris, and part of the debris we found in the excavated area in where the red star is. So the area we excavated was already deserted, but the tsunamis brought all this debris into the area that we excavated. So there are, sorry, let me find where I was. There are 4 discernible tsunami horizons identified, though more could be present. The identification of multiple tsunami events at Çeşme Bağlararası supports the proposed view that there were distinctive eruption phases with varying hiatuses between them. While many tsunami scenarios concentrate attention towards the east, southern, or southeastern directions or near field along the outskirts of the island itself, very few simulations included an area as far north as Çeşme. Discovery of tsunami deposits generated by the eruption of Thera at Bağlararası is the first evidence that supports this model. Çeşme Bağlararası is only one of the many coastal settlements impacted by the eruption and related earthquakes, tsunamis, ashfall, and fires, and will provide a type site reference for identifying others. Despite the presumed regional impact, tsunami evidence has only been reported for a handful of late Bronze Age sites, namely Malya, Gues, Palicastro, Leton, Miletus, and Fethiye, which are almost all in geological soundings. And they are all located to the east and south of Thera. All the green dots you see here are again evidence for volcanic ash, because the wind was blowing in these directions during the time of the eruption, and the blue dots are where the tsunamis are found. So when I look at this map, I see how should I say? I see there is a huge empty area which seemed to have been missed somehow. We argue that this start of reports is an artifact of methodological approach here, where the ability to identify paleo-tsunami sediments have advanced in recent years, and B, specifically with regard to the case of the late Bronze Age Thera eruption, the presence of tephra has been the baseline observation wherein consideration of a possible paleo-tsunami deposit followed. So we somehow always follow the ash line, which is more visible. And so we only looked for the tsunami deposits in these areas, I think. And because tsunami is moving to every direction, ash is moving where the wind blows, but the tsunami goes to all directions. So if we can find here all the way in Çeşme Bağlararası, all this big destruction that is caused by the tsunami, that means the entire Western Anatolian coastline, especially southern coastal Cyclades, Greek mainland, all these bays, and further, they all must have been similarly destroyed by the same tsunamis that kept coming. So from now on, I think we should be looking more carefully into this. I think it opens a new picture to look also from this perspective. And following the event, according to the archaeological remains, the thriving community at Çeşme Bağlararası ceases to exist for more than a century. In addition to loss of life and property damage, any coastal features or harboring areas would have been debris strewn and made unusable or highly compromised for a period. The ash deposits would have altered the chemistry of the soils, impacted aquifers, and damaged crops. Seaborne trade at the time of the event was central to the vitality and power of societies, in particularly the sea-dominating Minoans. the social fallout from the destruction of the system's core infrastructure cannot be understated, like ships, harbors, ports, coastal settlements. While many people survived the event, the dynamics of everyday life, political relations, and economic structures would have shifted. Disasters and the human reaction to them alter societies. In the case of Bronze Age Thera eruption, it can be considered a compound disaster, wherein multiple short-term and long-term challenges necessitated societal responses that would have had a multi-generational impact. While many people survived the event, their worlds would have changed. Çeşme Bağlararası, as seen here, lying under the modern town of Çeşme, finally began to tell us its story with all its glory and tragedy. Çeşmemen, a probable inhabitant of the site, is one of the first representatives of the many people who died or went missing on that tragic day, but probably helped many others to be found by archaeologists in the future. Çeşmemen is also the first ever found victim of this tsunami in a scientific excavations in a stratified deposit. There was, I think, one skeleton found in the 19th century in Teresia in the ashes, but it doesn't have any context. So this is the first ever victim that has ever been found. We normally think that countries like Japan, Indonesia, or that Asian geography, whenever the topic of tsunami comes up. But we should be aware that the most dangerous volcano of all is actually lying in the heart of the Aegean, right next door, in one of the most populated geographical areas of the world in Mediterranean. And recent events happening at and around Santorini these days is another stronger reminder to us that volcano eruptions and tsunamis have always been there and will always continue to be part of our lives. Thus, we need to raise awareness and prepare ourselves for the upcoming events in the future. Excavations and study of archaeological materials at Çeşme Bağlararası have been continuing in collaborative effort of international participation and interdisciplinary work. I would like to thank to everyone involved in this project for their valuable efforts and contributions. Our gratitude also goes to the supporting institutes of Çeşme Bağlararası Excavations and the ERA project, particularly Turkish Ministry of Culture, Ankara University, and Institute for Aegean Prehistory. And I would like to thank you all for your patience. I think I spoke a bit long. Thank you.